The bottle she wanted me to drink, 7,000 plus words expanded for AI voiceover pacing. The night after my father's funeral, my sister handed me a bottle of vodka and said, "Let's stop fighting for Dad." 5 years. That's how long it had been since she spoke to me. No birthdays, no holidays, no calls when he had his first stroke. No calls when I was sleeping upright in a hospital chair while machines kept him alive. And suddenly, she was on my porch in the Oregon rain. Mascara just smudged enough to look fragile, holding a crystal bottle that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. I didn't drink it. That detail matters. Because if I had, I wouldn't be telling you this. My name is Riley Thompson. I survived the Gulf. I survived deployment. I survived my mother's cancer. But I almost didn't survive my sister. And what I'm about to tell you is how grief became a weapon. Ethan came over that night to help me sort through inheritance paperwork. My fiancé, the one person who never asked me to shrink myself. He saw the vodka on the counter. "Just one," he said. "We both need something to take the edge off." I remember watching him twist the cap. I remember Madison standing too close, watching, not casually, not passively, watching like someone waiting for a result. 40 minutes later, Ethan was on my kitchen floor, his body convulsing, pulse racing so violently I could see it jumping in his neck. The sound his skull made when it hit the tile, I still hear it when the house is quiet. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't cinematic. It was a dull crack followed by the metallic rattle of the bar stool tipping over, and the smell. The vodka smelled wrong, sharper than it should have, almost bitter. Training takes over before fear does. Roll him to his side, clear airway, count breaths. Madison stood near the doorway, hand over her mouth. "Oh my God, what's happening?" "You tell me." I dialed 911 in a voice that once called coordinates under fire. Male, early 40s, sudden seizure, irregular heartbeat, possible ingestion. The operator asked what he consumed. I looked straight at my sister. "Vodka from a bottle my sister brought." Her eyes flicked to the counter. "Too fast." "I mean, it's just alcohol. Maybe he didn't eat." "He had dinner with me 2 hours ago." His pulse under my fingers felt wrong, not panic fast, danger fast. The ambulance lights washed red across the framed photos on my walls. My father in uniform, my mother before cancer hollowed her cheeks. Madison and me with braces and crooked bangs. The paramedic asked, "Anyone else drink from that bottle?" Madison answered too quickly. "No, she didn't." Not Riley, she didn't. Like I was an outcome she was tracking. At the hospital, they rushed him straight into the ER. Madison stood beside me in the hallway, rain still clinging to her coat. "I swear I bought it at duty free in Seattle," she said. "Expensive stuff. Wouldn't poison someone?" "Which store?" I asked. She blinked. "Does that matter right now?" It mattered. Everything mattered because she kept asking if I drank any. Not if Ethan would be okay, if I drank any. Hours later, the doctor came out. Severe cardiac arrhythmia, neurological symptoms consistent with toxin exposure. Toxin, the word changed the air. Madison whispered, "That's impossible." The doctor asked about heart conditions. Before I could answer, Madison spoke over me. "She has blood pressure issues, PTSD, she's on medication." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Why would she volunteer that? Why was she building a medical narrative? Ethan regained consciousness briefly. His eyes were clearer than I expected. "She was watching," he said. "Who?" "Your sister. When I poured it, she kept looking at you." "For what?" "For you to drink first." Silence has weight. That silence pressed on my lungs. That's when the first pattern locked into place. She wasn't worried. She was checking the outcome. When toxicology confirmed a plant-based toxin, aconitine, in Ethan's bloodstream, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt confirmed. Because aconitine isn't accidental. It isn't something that just happens. It has to be introduced. Deliberately. That night I stood under the hospital lights and understood something with absolute clarity. Madison didn't come home to make peace. She came home with a plan. And Ethan was never supposed to be the one on the floor. The next morning I went straight to my father's estate attorney. Same black funeral dress, same shoes, same grief. He showed me the updated will. Finalized 10 days before my father's stroke. Everything left to Madison. Everything, house, investments. $750,000 life insurance, no equal split, no mention of me. The email requesting the change came from my account, Except it wasn't my email address. It originated from Seattle, where Madison lives. That's when grief turned into something else. Clarity, because if I had taken that first drink, the revised will would have placed everything in her hands. No contest, no dispute, just a grieving sister who lost everyone, and a life insurance payout triggered by medical complications. She even mentioned my blood pressure issues to the nurse. She was building a cause of death narrative before a death happened. I brought my prescription bottles to my doctor, wrong pills inside, same label, different medication, stronger beta blocker, dangerous when combined with alcohol. Potentially fatal, filled 3 days before the funeral. Pharmacy footage later showed Madison inside that store near the counter. Alone, 3 layers, poison the vodka, switch my medication, forge the will. That's not emotional. That's architectural. That's a structure built to eliminate someone quietly, and I was the foundation she wanted removed. Then the text started, unknown number. Stop digging. Some things should stay buried with your father. And my favorite. Insurance paperwork takes time. She thought I would panic. She thought I would retreat. She forgot something. I don't retreat. I gather evidence. When a man named Victor Russo showed up at my door, everything snapped into full focus. Madison owed $400,000 in gambling debt, high-stakes betting, offshore accounts, compounded interest. She used the life insurance policy as collateral. She promised them it would clear quickly after my death. She said you wouldn't be an obstacle much longer, Victor told me, not emotionally, not regretfully, just factually. She researched compounds that mimic cardiac failure. She was very thorough. Yes, she was. That night I sat alone in my father's study, looking at 2 versions of his legacy, one real, one forged, and I said something out loud for the first time. She meant to kill me. Not out of rage, out of calculation, and that's worse. Because rage is messy, calculation is quiet. But here's what she didn't account for. Ethan loved me enough to pour first. And I survived. That survival wasn't luck, it was interruption. She miscalculated a variable. Love. The story doesn't end here, it gets deeper. Because the moment she realized I wasn't dead, the pressure shifted. Organized crime doesn't like failed timelines, and desperate people don't make calm decisions. What she built to erase me is about to collapse on her. Silently, strategically, completely, and I'm not done telling you how. The morning after Victor left my porch, I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid, but because my mind doesn't shut down when there's a pattern forming, it sharpens. Madison didn't act alone, she didn't improvise, she engineered, and engineers leave blueprints. I just had to find them. I went back to my father's attorney. Harold Whitaker, silver hair, suspenders, old school ethics. The kind of man my father trusted without reading the fine print. I didn't sit this time. I stood in front of his desk and asked one question. Who had physical access to your office the night the will was finalized? He hesitated. That half-second told me everything. There was after-hours access, he admitted. Keycard entry? Logs, I asked. He pulled them up. 2:17 a.m. temporary access code used. Issued to Madison. She had claimed she needed to drop off paperwork. After midnight, the night before the digital signature finalized. Grief makes people sloppy. Madison wasn't sloppy, she was impatient, and impatience leaves fingerprints. The enhanced security footage came in 2 days later, not grainy enough to deny. Baseball cap, oversized coat, her walk. You can disguise a face. You can't disguise posture. She moved like someone who believed she was smarter than the system. Confident, direct, no hesitation, 8 minutes inside. 8 minutes is enough to alter a future. But here's what changed everything. The life insurance clause, there was a rider attached. Expedited payout in the event of medical complication. Expedited, that word is why she chose timing. Funeral stress, alcohol, pre-existing blood pressure condition. Natural narrative, clean story, fast money. I sat in my truck after leaving Harold's office and said it out loud. She priced my life. $750,000 minus $400,000 debt. Leaves her with $350,000 and a fresh start. You know what that is? That's not desperation, that's arithmetic. The FBI called 2 days later. Special Agent Daniel Hayes, Monica Ruiz, calm, clinical. Watching everything, they didn't waste time. We've confirmed significant gambling transactions tied to your sister, Hayes said, offshore accounts. shell transfers, crypto laundering. Madison wasn't betting for fun, she was chasing losses. And when losses compound, people stop thinking in morality, they think in survival. Ruiz slid a document across the table. Search history, 2 months of research. Aconitine lethal dosage. Symptoms that mimic cardiac failure. Beta blocker interaction with alcohol. Probate timeline after sibling death. She didn't just plan my death. She planned the paperwork after it. That's what betrayal looks like when it's educated. But here's where it gets darker. She practiced narratives. The agents had partial audio from her cloud backup. Late-night rehearsals. Yes, officer, she's been drinking more since Dad passed. She's been under so much stress. I tried to get her help. She was building my obituary with character references. When I left the federal building in Portland, I didn't feel broken. I felt still. Stillness is dangerous when you've been trained to operate inside it. She thought I would collapse emotionally, cry, confront her publicly, make mistakes. Instead, I started thinking like her. What does Madison need right now? Control. If she loses control, she panics. If she panics, she talks. And if she talks, she exposes herself. She texted me that evening. We need to talk. Alone? Of course we do. The FBI wanted recorded intent. I wanted the truth from her mouth. I agreed to meet at my father's house, the house she thought would be hers by now. Before I went inside that night, I sat in my truck and thought about childhood. Madison always hated losing. Board games, grades, attention. If she didn't win, she rewrote the rules. I didn't realize she had been practicing for this her whole life. She was already inside when I entered. Standing in the living room, hands folded. No tears this time, no mascara running, just calculation. You look tired, she said. I've been busy, I replied. She smiled faintly. With what? Cleaning up your mess. Her jaw tightened. For a split second, the mask slipped, then it was back. I don't know what you think you know, she said calmly, but you're making this worse. Worse. Like I was the one escalating. Gaslighting is subtle when it's done well, and Madison was good at subtle. I walked past her into the kitchen. The same kitchen where Ethan collapsed. She didn't follow immediately. That told me something too. The room holds memory for her now. Good. You forged the will, I said. She didn't deny it immediately. She deflected. Dad was going to leave it to me anyway. That's not what the original says. She blinked. How do you? I let silence answer that. She inhaled slowly. Fine, I helped him reconsider. At 2:17 in the morning in a locked office with my email credentials helped. Why? I asked. Her composure cracked just slightly. Because it wasn't fair. There it was, fair, the word she's used her whole life. You always got the praise, the medals, the trust. This wasn't about praise, I said quietly. It was about security, she snapped. And you think killing me was security? I wasn't killing you, she shot back. I was correcting an imbalance. Imbalance, that's how she reframed murder as math. You researched aconitine, I said, silence, her eyes shifted. You switched my medication? Silence again. You practiced telling police I was unstable. Her breathing changed. Faster, less controlled. I didn't think it would go this far, she finally whispered. That's not denial. That's regret over execution, not morality, execution. You meant for me to drink it, I said. She stared at me, and in that moment I saw it, not rage, not guilt, resentment. Yes, she said, just like that. Yes, no drama, no crying, just confirmation. You always survive everything, she added. This time you weren't supposed to. That sentence did something strange to me. It didn't hurt, it clarified she didn't hate me. She envied my survival and she wanted to test it. You pledged my life insurance as collateral, I said. Her eyes widened. You talked to Victor? Yes. Her shoulders dropped slightly, the weight of exposure. They were going to ruin me, she said. So you decided to ruin me first? Silence. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. I thought you'd understand. Understand, like survival is a shared language. Like betrayal is a sisterly agreement. I would have helped you, I said. She laughed, a sharp, hollow sound. No, you would have judged me. That's the difference between us. I solve problems. She hides them until they explode. You could still walk away, she said quietly. From what? From pressing charges? Charges, she already knew the legal reality. You tried to kill me, I said. I tried to fix things, she corrected. That's the psychology of it. She didn't see herself as a villain. She saw herself as someone correcting a financial error. And I was the expense line. When I left the house that night, I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. Silent revenge doesn't need volume, it needs timing. And the timing was almost perfect, because she had just given the FBI exactly what they needed: recorded intent, admission, motive. But this story isn't about her arrest, not yet. It's about what happens when someone realizes they failed, because failure changes desperate people. And Madison had just realized something terrifying. I wasn't going to die quietly, and I wasn't going to forgive quietly either. The next morning, the pressure escalated, and when pressure escalates, people make irreversible mistakes. The morning after she admitted it, I expected silence. Instead, I got escalation. My phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m. Unknown number, you think you're safe? No greeting, no name, just a reminder that desperation doesn't stay quiet. I didn't respond. That's the thing about power. Real power doesn't answer threats, it records them. By 8 a.m., Special Agent Hayes was in my driveway, unmarked car, calm expression, but his tone was different. She's moving money, he said. Fast? Offshore transfers, crypto liquidation, high-risk cash withdrawals. She knows she's exposed. Good, fear makes people sloppy, but Madison wasn't just moving money. She was liquidating identity, deleting social accounts, closing credit lines, selling assets under market value. She wasn't planning to fight. She was planning to run, and people who plan to run make final moves before they disappear. At 10:47 a.m., the pharmacy called me. Your prescription refill was picked up this morning. I froze. I didn't request a refill. The technician paused. It was picked up under your name. Of course it was. Madison wasn't done with chemistry. She was doubling down. I drove straight to the pharmacy. Security footage showed her again, hat, sunglasses. Confident, she picked up the medication and left. The question wasn't why. The question was timing. If she was planning to flee, why risk another attempt? Unless she needed the payout before she left. Unless the debt collectors weren't giving her time. Victor called me that afternoon. I think your sister misunderstood the timeline, he said, cold voice, no emotion. She promised payment within 72 hours. Or consequences. Organized crime doesn't send reminder emails. They send leverage, and I was leverage. That's when I understood something critical. Madison wasn't just trying to escape prosecution. She was racing a deadline, a financial execution date. And if she couldn't deliver my insurance payout, she would become the collateral. I went home and locked every door, checked every window, not because I was afraid, but because control matters, and she had already tried twice. Poison. Medication switch. What's attempt number 3? Car brakes, gas leak, staged burglary. When someone crosses the line into calculated murder, there's no moral boundary left. That night I installed cameras. Inside and out. Not flashy ones, small, hidden, quiet. Silent revenge requires patience, and patience requires documentation. At 1:18 a.m. my phone buzzed again, unknown number. She was right about you. That got my attention. Who was she? Madison or someone else inside her circle? She said you'd never stop digging. I typed one sentence. Tell her she's right. No more, no less. The next morning, the FBI executed a search warrant on Madison's Seattle condo. Inside, they found something that shifted this from attempted murder to premeditated conspiracy. Printed documents, not just search history, step-by-step outlines. Phase 1, reconnect emotionally. Phase 2, introduce alcohol. Phase 3, medication synergy. Phase 4, narrative control. Narrative control. She wasn't just planning my death, she was planning the story after it. They also found prepaid burner phones, 3 of them, one used exclusively to communicate with Victor's network, one used for pharmacy coordination, and one used to text me threats. She wanted me destabilized, afraid, reactive, because reactive people make mistakes. But here's what she never understood: I don't react, I observe. And while she was escalating emotionally, I was tightening legally. 2 days later, Ethan was discharged from the hospital, weak, pale, but alive. He looked at me and said something that cut deeper than anything Madison said. She really thought you wouldn't fight back? That's the part that hurts. Not that she tried, but that she underestimated me. Underestimating someone you grew up with, that's not ignorance, that's ego. The arrest warrant was ready. Attempted homicide, fraud, identity theft, insurance conspiracy, but the FBI wanted to wait. Why? Because she hadn't finished unraveling. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is letting someone build their own collapse. Madison booked a one-way ticket to Vancouver. Departure 48 hours. She thought crossing the border would buy time. It wouldn't, but it told us something. She believed the window was closing, and she was right. The night before her flight, she showed up at my house again. No mascara this time, no performance, just raw panic. You have to call them off, she said. I can't. You can. No, I replied calmly. I won't. She paced my living room. They're going to destroy me. You tried to destroy me. I was desperate, so was I said. When Mom was dying, when Dad had his stroke, I didn't poison you. That hit her. Because it exposed the truth. Desperation isn't justification, it's character revealed. You don't understand what they'll do, she whispered. I do, I said. Silence filled the room, heavy, final. Then she said something that surprised me. I never hated you, I know. I just couldn't stand always feeling smaller. That's envy, not anger. Envy grows quietly for years, and when it matures, it doesn't scream, it calculates. Walk away with me, she said suddenly. Disappear, split what's left, start over. There it was, her last card, partnership in crime. Sisterhood rewritten as co-conspiracy. She still believed I'd choose blood over justice. You already chose, I said softly. And so did I. She stared at me for a long time, like she was trying to find the version of me she used to manipulate. That version doesn't exist anymore. Not after poison, not after forged wills, not after rehearsed obituaries. When she left that night, she didn't slam the door, she didn't threaten, she just looked empty, and emptiness is dangerous. Because when someone realizes they've lost control, they either surrender or they lash out one final time. At 3:42 a.m., my exterior camera caught movement. A shadow near my garage, hood up, gloves on. Madison, she crouched near my car, and that's when I knew, attempt number 3. But this time, I was ready, and she had just crossed from conspiracy into something she couldn't explain away. At 3:42 a.m., my phone vibrated softly against my nightstand. Motion alert, garage camera. I didn't jump. I didn't panic. I reached for the phone and watched. There she was. Madison, hood pulled low, gloves on, moving with urgency, not hesitation. That's how I knew this wasn't emotional, it was procedural. She crouched beside my car. Passenger side first, then the driver's. Her movements were tight, focused. She wasn't keying the paint. She wasn't slashing tires. She was underneath. And that's when the truth settled in my chest like ice. She wasn't trying to scare me anymore. She was trying to finish it. I didn't call her. I didn't scream from the window. I called Hayes. He answered on the second ring. I'm watching her, I said calmly. Send units. Stay inside. I will. That's the thing about training. When chaos shows up at your door, you don't escalate, you contain. Madison slid out from under the car, looked around once, twice, then stood. There was something in her hand, small, metallic. She wiped it with a cloth, dropped it into her coat pocket, and walked toward the street. She didn't run, she never runs, she walks like she still thinks she's in control. Police intercepted her 3 blocks away. She didn't resist, she didn't cry. She didn't ask for me. That part matters, because this was never about reconciliation. It was always about outcome. When the bomb squad inspected my car, they found a small but precise modification. Brake line partially severed. Not enough to fail immediately, enough to fail under pressure. Highway speed. Sudden stop, no obvious tampering, just tragic mechanical failure. Calculated. Again, you know what the scariest part is? It would have worked. Not dramatic. Not explosive, just a delayed loss of control. A headline that reads, Local veteran dies in single-car accident weeks after father's funeral. Stress narrative already established. Alcohol reputation planted. Blood pressure condition documented. Insurance rider triggered. Clean, but she forgot something. I don't drive without checking my mirrors, and I don't ignore patterns. By the time the sun came up, Madison was in custody. Attempted homicide escalated to aggravated charges. Conspiracy expanded. Federal involvement solidified. She had crossed too many lines now. There was no more gray area. They let me see her once. Interrogation room. Metal table, fluorescent lights. No makeup, no composure, just exhaustion. She looked smaller, not physically, energetically, like the architecture she built inside herself had collapsed. You had cameras, she said flatly. Yes, you planned this. No, I replied calmly. I survived it. There's a difference. She studied my face, looking for anger, for hatred, for something she could twist, but revenge doesn't always look like rage. Sometimes it looks like stillness. I didn't want it to get this far, she said quietly. It got this far when you forged Dad's will. It got this far when you talked to those people. It got this far when you put poison in that bottle. Her breathing grew heavier. Not crying, just confronting. You were always stronger, she whispered. No, I said, I just didn't resent your strength. That's the difference between us. I compete with myself. She competed with me. They were going to hurt me, she said, and so you chose to hurt me first. Silence. Her eyes flickered because she knew every justification she rehearsed collapsed under direct light. Did you ever hesitate, I asked, before the poison? Before the breaks, before the forged signature? She thought about it. Actually thought, then said, no, honesty finally, not emotional, not dramatic, just fact. That answer didn't destroy me, it freed me. Because once you accept that someone you love never hesitated to remove you, you stop waiting for apology, and you start building distance. Permanent distance. Victor was arrested 2 weeks later, federal charges. Interstate conspiracy, financial coercion. Madison had been a client, but also a liability. When clients fail to pay, organizations cut ties quickly. He tried to negotiate, tried to shift blame. But digital trails don't disappear just because you're persuasive. The trial took 8 months to begin, 8 months of headlines, speculation, extended family choosing sides quietly. Some called me ruthless for cooperating fully, for refusing to handle it privately. They didn't see the break line, they didn't taste the bitterness in that vodka. They didn't hear her say yes. Ethan stood by me every single court date. That matters. Because love interrupted her plan once, and love stood witness when it collapsed. The prosecution presented everything. Search history, security footage, cloud rehearsals, recorded confession, break tampering, layer after layer. Architecture exposed, you could see the jury's expressions change. Not shock, recognition. They understood what this was, premeditation. Madison testified. She tried to frame it as panic, as mounting debt pressure, as emotional instability after losing our parents, but the timeline betrayed her. The research began months before Dad's stroke. The debt accumulated years before that. This wasn't grief. It was long-term resentment weaponized. When the verdict came in, the courtroom felt smaller, like the air had thickened. Guilty on all major counts. She didn't look at me not once, maybe because she knew the silent revenge wasn't loud, it wasn't explosive, it was patient. And it was complete. She was sentenced to 22 years, federal facility, no early parole on the aggravated charges. Victor received longer, organized crime enhancements, financial penalties, assets seized. The $750,000 policy, frozen under fraud investigation. Untouched, no payout, no prize. The house went back into probate review. Original will reinstated, split evenly. I sold it. Not because I needed the money, but because walls remember things, and I didn't want to live inside that memory. You'd think the story ends there. Courtroom, justice served, fade to black, but silent revenge doesn't end with a gavel. It ends with something quieter, rebuilding. Because here's the truth no one talks about. When someone tries to erase you and fails, you don't just survive, you evolve. You would think the loudest moment in this story was the verdict. The judge's voice, the word guilty, the sentence, but it wasn't. The loudest moment was the first quiet morning after it was all over. No court dates, no FBI calls, no anonymous threats. Just sunlight coming through the kitchen window. The same kitchen, the same counter. The same place where a bottle once waited for me, and I stood there completely alive. People assume revenge feels explosive, like fireworks, like shouting from rooftops. But silent revenge, it feels like breathing without fear. It feels like drinking coffee without checking for bitterness. It feels like getting in your car and knowing the brakes will work. Power doesn't have to roar. Sometimes it just steadies your hands. Ethan asked me something a week after sentencing. Do you feel better? I thought about it. Better isn't the right word. I felt clear. Clarity is underrated. When someone betrays you at that level, they fracture your sense of reality. You replay conversations, you question your instincts, you wonder how long the resentment was growing. But once the truth stands in court documents, you stop guessing. And guessing is what exhausts you. I started running again. Early mornings, cold air, Long miles, not because I needed therapy, but because forward motion matters. There's something powerful about choosing to move when someone tried to permanently stop you. Each mile felt like defiance, not loud. Not public, just mine. The insurance policy was officially voided under fraud conspiracy. No payout, no backdoor clause, nothing. Madison had gambled my life on a financial equation, and the equation collapsed. Zero profit. Maximum loss, that's the part that would hurt her most. Not prison, loss, she always feared losing. And this time she lost completely. I received letters from her, 3 of them. The first was angry. You destroyed our family, interesting rewrite. The second was reflective. I was under pressure you don't understand. The third was quiet. No blame, no anger, just one sentence. I thought removing you would finally make me feel enough. That sentence stayed with me. Because that's the root of it. It was never about money. Money was the excuse. It was about comparison, about standing next to someone and feeling smaller. And instead of building herself up, she tried to shrink me down. That's what envy does when it matures without discipline. It becomes elimination. I didn't respond to the letters, not out of cruelty, but out of boundary. Closure doesn't always require conversation. Sometimes it requires distance. Permanent distance? 6 months later, Ethan proposed again. He had asked once before the funeral, before the poison, before the break line. This time he didn't kneel in a restaurant. He didn't make a spectacle. We were hiking. Halfway up a quiet trail, he stopped, looked at me and said, "They tried to take you, you're still here, marry me." No ring presentation, no audience, just fact. And I said yes, not because I needed stability, but because love interrupted death once. And I choose what saves me. We moved. New state, new house, not running, just resetting. I kept the cameras, not because I'm afraid, but because awareness is power, and power doesn't sleep. Every now and then, someone asks me, "Do you hate her?" I don't. Hate requires emotional energy, and I've already invested enough in surviving her. What I feel is something colder. Acceptance. She showed me exactly who she was when pressure exposed her core, and I believe people when they reveal themselves that clearly. The biggest comeback wasn't financial. It wasn't legal. It wasn't even emotional. It was psychological. She wanted me destabilized, paranoid, destroyed from the inside out. Instead, I became more disciplined, more observant, more decisive. She tried to erase me. She refined me. That's the irony of silent revenge. You don't just win. You evolve. There's one moment I replay sometimes. Not the poison, not the confession, not the arrest. It's something smaller. It's her saying, "You always survive everything." She meant it as resentment, but it became truth. I do survive everything, not because I'm invincible, but because I don't panic under pressure. And when someone chooses calculation over love, I choose clarity over emotion. If you're listening to this and you've ever been betrayed quietly by family, by someone who smiled at you while resenting you, understand something. The most powerful response is not public revenge, it's private stability. It's refusing to collapse when someone designs your collapse. It's letting their architecture fail while you strengthen yours. Madison thought the story would end with my obituary. Instead, it ends with her sentence and my continuation. That's the difference between someone who plots and someone who persists. Plotting requires secrecy. Persistence requires endurance. Endurance always wins in the long run. I don't visit her. I don't track her appeals. I don't follow updates because my revenge was never about watching her suffer. It was about making sure she couldn't touch my life again. Silence can be louder than screaming, and peace can be sharper than retaliation. Sometimes, late at night, I open a bottle of vodka, not to drink, just to smell it. Sharp, clean, normal, no bitterness, no toxin, just alcohol. And I put it back on the shelf because I don't need to drink to prove I survived. I just need to remember that I did. If she had succeeded, this would have been a cautionary headline, a tragic accident, a grieving sister collecting condolences. Instead, it's a warning. You can study someone. You can research chemicals. You can forge signatures. You can rehearse lies. But if the person you're targeting knows how to stay still under pressure, your plan collapses. The silent revenge wasn't explosive. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't messy. It was documentation. Patience, timing, truth, and truth is undefeated when you give it time to surface. My name is Riley Thompson. I survived the Gulf. I survived cancer wards. I survived grief. And I survived my sister not because I outplayed her, But because I refused to become emotional inside her calculation, she thought she was rewriting the ending. She forgot something critical. I was still alive to write it myself.